Hey guys, I wasn't going to do another video. I don't want to saturate people, but after everything that's happened in the last few days, I thought that I'd just throw a few notes down. I did do another longer video, which I've not released. It was an initial response, which was me extremely angry, and I don't think it's probably appropriate that maybe I will at a later stage. My thoughts go out to the families involved of the Manchester attack, as they should. But more than anything else, once I put aside the kind of personal side of it, I'm just left feeling really angry now. And I think this is a common feeling across the country. It's the anger that comes from just feeling drained from the repetition of the whole thing. We've been down through this so many times now, and nothing ever changes. And I think this is what everyone else is now feeling. Everyone can, not just on now the pretty much yearly, it feels like, if not more, Islamic attacks, but just the general sense of malaise and incompetence that permeates out from the British state when it comes to deal with anything that's of any way slightly hard, difficult, or and particularly intersects with race and immigration. Once again, the person who's committed it shouldn't have been in the country. Once again, the British state, if you notice, has gone out of its way to try and slowly drip the information out. You are being handled by their nudge units as we speak. It was very obvious the other day when Greater Manchester Police first released their press release over it, and they said, a British man of Syrian descent, of which I immediately clocked and turned around and was like, well, was he born here or not? Broke 5 minutes later from GB News that he wasn't. Then the father of the attacker put out a statement going, I can't believe he did this, and shock horror and everything else, which was almost certainly written by the British state to try and give that sense of we're all in it together. Then it came out that he's done a series of social media posts basically lionising the people, the Hamas attack on Israel in that October. And this really underlines to me the problem that we have now is the fact that the state tries to handle the actual population and the majority rather than actually deal with the problems that these issues are throwing up. And I think this is why, frustration is now boiling out everywhere. I noticed that David Lammy was sent up to Manchester, I think it was yesterday, and got booed. I don't think it'd make any difference which politician went up there. They'd have got booed, just as Starmer got booed when he went to Southport and everything else. This is... it has the sense of an end of regime feel to it, not just Labour, but this entire whatever we've had for the last 25 years. It's visibly failing, and public trust and belief in it is now pretty much exhausted. The very legitimacy in the regime and the state is basically gone, and that's very much what you're seeing across the country. Not just in response to, as I said, terrorist attacks, the flags, just the general malaise you see in our politics. That is basically because trust and belief in the state, its very legitimacy has basically just failed. I mean, the flags alone, they are they're representative, basically the majority just turning around and basically walking away from what's the status quo of mass migration and multiculturalism that has been pushed upon the majority over the last 25 years. It's the flags are like dogs cocking their legs against a lamppost to mark their territory. Taking those with the now protests outside the migrant hotels, the fact that you're starting to see the middle class, women particularly, come out and talk about women's safety because of the problems that very clearly mass migration is causing. My wife, we live just outside London. My wife works in London. She said, London is just not a pleasant place now of an evening. Just lots of very clearly not British people walking around who are aggressively moving into women's space in a way that British people would never do that way. Particularly Asian gangs of young men. And I think that, all of these issues are now building up, and we're building towards a crescendo. And I think that it was very interesting, like I think I've said before, over the fact that when Farage and co came out with their statement over removing 650,000, I think it was, illegal immigrants and everything else, the argument wasn't over whether or not it was morally right or wrong, it was whether it was technically possible or not. It's very interesting that Starmer went to, and co went to conference and accused him and therefore his voters of being racist, but then effectively have announced a series of policies which were kind of moving in the same direction themselves. They know what's going on. They know what the polling's showing. There is a real anger that's now abroad in this country, and it's a kind of anger that I don't think that they have any concept how to deal with. They certainly don't have the policies to deal with it, but they are trying in their small way, whilst also being walled in by the left's own basically mental ideological viewpoint plus rhetoric, but they are trying to move around it. But I don't think it'll be enough. I think that the local by-elections that have been coming out in the last few days demonstrate that Reform clearly are now the force within British politics to beat. They are the force because they are the change candidate, and very clearly the majority have had enough, or a majority have had enough. And I do think that also that Reform's polling, as I was discussing with some friends the other day on WhatsApp, we all agree that we think that Reform's polling probably underpolls them by maybe 5, even 10 points. There are a lot of people who won't admit to voting Reform. There are a lot of people who perhaps won't even admit to voting Reform until they even get into the voting booth, and then they sit there and kind of go, got nothing to lose here. I don't know what that means in terms of for the future, but I know that we just can't carry on like this. The status quo is now completely and utterly untenable for the majority. We live in a country where we are more and more concerned for our personal safety. I certainly, as a father of a 4-year-old and a happily married man, I worry about my kid and I worry about my wife a lot. I worry about the demographics changing, not to do with the colour of skin, but over the fact that we're importing thousands upon thousands from, frankly, cultures that are not nice. And the politicians know this, and they do nothing. The largest group of people who are now claiming asylum in this country are actually Pakistanis, and they're doing it via a route where they just fly in on a visa, and then when their visa runs out, then they claim asylum. Politicians know this is going on, and they do nothing. This is only just starting to percolate into the public consciousness. People up until this point have been solely focused on illegal migration, but I think that the bigger blow up is coming because people are suddenly becoming very aware of legal migration, and whatever the noise coming out of Labour, they're not actually really tackling it. Most of the reason why legal migration is dropping now is because of changes the Tories made in their final year or so, but it's not enough. When you speak to your average person in this country, they think net migration into the country is maybe 30,000. not 650 to 700,000, which is what the number is at the moment. When that percolates into public consciousness, I think that it will be game over for the entire system. But on top of that, what you have now is day by day in the media, you have the blow by blow of the different Pakistani rape gangs that are coming into the published consciousness, and these are all stacking on top of each other and generating a general sense within the, if you like, the native population. And when I say native population, again, I'm not talking about skin colour. You can be a British person who's been here 3-4 generations, who, black, Asian, whatever else. You are integrated in every way. You were born here. You are as British as you and I, and you are as concerned about this country as I am in the terms of the direction it's going. And the majority right now is slowly but surely, as I said, as these issues pile upon each other, suddenly realising what's going on. And I think that that's going to slingshot reform even further. Maybe the Tories make a bit of a recovery. I think Labour's pretty much finished, to be honest, as an electoral force. And good. As a form of a Labour voter, it's betrayed me, it's betrayed the working class, it's betrayed this country, and frankly, the death of the Labour Party would only be a good thing for the working class of this country, which is what it was originally set up to represent. So, I don't know, Parliament it's nearly back. I think it has returned now. Obviously, the party conferences are grinding through, and I think that we're now waiting for the next step up. But these issues aren't going to go away. And I think that Starmer and co realise that. I mean, Starmer, I think there's a reasonable chance he will resign. But I don't think it'll make any difference. It's structural. It's structural. I think the Labour Party's finished. I think the Labour Party's finished in a way that the Conservatives potentially aren't, though I could be wrong now. There is no point to the Labour Party. It has basically abandoned everything that it once stood for, and there's no space left for them in the country. And I think that as these issues pile up, the Tories rightly will get blame for continuing the mass migration that's brought us here to a certain extent, but the Labour Party will be seen as the party of mass migration. And I think that it will become increasingly difficult for the Crank Greens and the Magic Grandpa's party, which is your party? Your party, I think it is, because their heady alliance of, effectively the Islamic vote with middle-aged and middle-class eco-warriors is just not sustainable. There is a lot of people who vote Green who think, they want vote Green for the right reasons. I think we should recycle more and have clean air and everything else, and that's completely fine. I may agree or disagree with how they want to do it, but it's completely fair and a nice view to have. But I think that as time goes by and the realities of mass migration, and unfortunately it's mass migration predominantly, but not completely, from cultures that have Islam as the main religion. I'm not saying that there's 100% correlation between them. There's complexity there. There is genuine cultural issues, and then there's genuine religious issues. But it is a fact that it is predominantly from those cultures and countries and everything else. I think that reliance within the Greens and Magic Grandpa's party will start breaking down. They'll probably end up, the middle-aged, middle-class people will probably end up at the Lib Dems, but I mean, that's probably more their thing. They're also cranky and, trans rights and all that nonsense, but it's a unstable electoral coalition. So I don't know. We'll see. The really sad part of it is some friends and I have for some time sat there listed off the crises that may finish off this government. Fiscal crisis, blackouts because of net zero, etc. And one of them was actually a mass casualty Islamic terrorist attack. And the really sad part is that this isn't even, I wouldn't even classify this as a mass casualty event. It's awful, and I'm not taking away from the horror that's been visited. But we've become so normalised to these things. We've become so used to the idea that people are going to go into things and start hacking and slashing at people and killing people, that, to be honest, just 2 people, it to a certain extent, it doesn't move the needle enough to trigger that end crisis. However, as I said at the beginning, I do think it's just another signpost along the way. The regime, this liberal regime that we've lived under for the last 30 years or 35 years, is now staggering towards the end. It can offer nothing, and it certainly can't offer the basics that people want, which is security for their family and a sense of future and everything else. One final thing that I'd just like to touch on, and I think it's important. Anyone that follows me on Twitter or on here knows that I am not a fan of Keir Starmer and this government. I'm not. I think they are appalling. It's a wrong 'un, as I think I put on Twitter the other day. However, we should never ever blame politicians for what some evil person with a knife or other weapon does to other innocents. Labour did not cause this terrorist attack. The recognition of a Palestinian state that's stupid in my mind and utterly irrelevant, it did not cause this. Blame Keir Starmer for his stupidity, his arrogance, his lack of movement on immigration, on integration. Have a go at him over the lack of the grooming gangs investigation or inquiry. There's plenty of things to have a go at him over, and this government. But they are not to blame for this. This is solely down to the person, the evil man that decided to do it, and the vile ideology that drove him. And as I said, I say that as someone who's not a fan of Keir Starmer in any shape or form. Anyway, hopefully this is calmer. Hopefully this is slightly more thoughtful, because I have to say the one that I released or I was going to release was 25 minutes of me absolutely incandescent with rage. That rage is still there, but I'm trying to tamp it down and be a little bit more thoughtful and everything else. Anyway, I hope everyone has lovely weekends. Let's keep our thoughts with the families impacted, and yeah, let's just do that. Have a lovely weekend, guys. Thank you.